All right, be the market expert. So we're gonna change it up a little bit, and because this kind of came up, and I was listening to it a little bit, and the conversation, while this title is Southern States, it says houses are underwater, right? So seriously, underwater home mortgages rise. Like that's the headline that we have underwater homes, right? And when we start talking about underwater homes, we start thinking about foreclosures, we start thinking about short sales, we start thinking about all this craziness. All right, so here's the headlines, right? And we know this, and we're in real estate, so we understand that one of the best things that the news does for us is they over exaggerate everything because that's what gets clicks. So we're looking at underwater home mortgages rise. And it says this. So here's the report. This was May 9th, and this was information that has come out from just one of the companies that this is all they do is they just pull info. And so it says 1 in 37 homes with mortgages was considered seriously underwater during the first quarter. All right. So we're seeing seriously underwater. We're seeing serious underwater homes rise. So 1 in 37, which is up from 1 in 38 of 2023. All right, so one more home is what this is. So it's saying 1 in 37 versus 1 in 38. And if we were to look at it, it's very interesting because if we're diving into it, it says a mortgage is considered seriously underwater when the estimated loan balance secured by a property is at least 25% more than the property's estimated market value. So I think we were to look at this and we were to think about, what is happening, where it's happening, and who it's happening to. These are going to be people that probably bought in the height of 2021, right? Like this is when everything, the music kind of stopped in 2021, maybe a little bit into 2022, when people were going and they were spending lots and lots of money over asking, waiving all their contingencies to get houses because we had a savagely unhealthy market due to not enough inventory. With interest rates as low as they were, people were willing to do anything to get a house. And it made sense to an extent, but this is what we're seeing now. And so I think that a lot of the people that we're going to see affected by this would be like a Chaffa-like product. But here's the other big piece about this is saying that the southern states are the ones that are really moving this needle. It's not Colorado, so it's not a Chaffa product. It'd be a Chaffa-like product down in those states. And when we're talking about this and this 25%, here's the issue. You're pretty much okay unless two things happen, right? And so being underwater isn't necessarily a bad thing. Now it is a bad thing. Like don't take that any other way that it is bad. But here's the thing, it's only going to affect you negatively if you lose your job, right? If you were to lose your job and then you're going to have to sell your house, right? Then you're probably going to be in a weird position because the bank's going to expect money, right? Like you're going to have like closing costs, you're going to have a lot of other stuff. But if you're underwater and you owe more than what your home will sell for, the bank doesn't just say, okay, cool, thank you, good doing business with you, and they move on. Like the bank's going to expect some money from you, which also means that it's probably going to be harder for you to go buy a house as well, depending on what your cash position looks like. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very unlikely for you to be so far underwater in your home to where you're going to have to sell your house and actually bring a lot of money to the table to actually close and then actually have extra money to go buy a new house. Like that's where it gets a little bit weird. As well as like as things are going on, if we keep having this restrictive policy where banks aren't lending money and money's getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and if banks need to free up cash or assets, this might where it get a little bit weird as well, to where they need the money and they might make something happen. They might put an acceleration clause or something in place. So again, this isn't a real issue unless the person has to vacate their home. And if they're going to stay in their home, they'll eventually catch up, because we do know that 4% year over year is what we're going to see in appreciation. And if they don't ever have to sell the home, they're probably going to be okay. I don't know if this thing goes through it as well, But it says it's going through and it's saying like Kentucky is one of the big states that if you were to look at this, South Carolina, Delaware, Indiana, like here's some different pieces. Home equity rose in 23 states though. So we look at the Midwest region, South Dakota, we have Hawaii, Montana, North Dakota, Mississippi, and then metro areas with the lowest percentage of equity rich properties includes like Louisiana, Arkansas, Virginia Beach, right? And these are the places where we're looking at, and you can see, like, look at the prices of these homes 197, 305, 215. And this kind of makes sense, right? When we're thinking about what the prices look like nationwide, and our average price point is what I think 450, I think nationwide. These numbers totally make sense to me. When you're this low below what the national average home price is, of course, like you're not going to see a lot of equity in your home. So this was just interesting. This was clickbait. I think also what you're going to see right now is that I think it's like 45%, I think it's the number right now, of all homes in the United States don't have a mortgage. So 45% of all homes in the United States don't have a mortgage. And then we look at this and we're talking about southern states are the ones that are increasing this number from 1 in 37 to, or I'm sorry, from 1 in 38 homes to 1 in 37 homes. And then I think if you were to actually really look at this number, it's only like 2%. While this isn't that reflective number, it's like 2% of all homes nationwide have some kind of potential foreclosure or a short sale risk. So really just clickbait. The second thing, if we look at this, this is a Redfin study, and Redfin went through and second home mortgage market slumped in 2023. And really just the big one, right? When I was looking through this article was this right here. It says nationwide, 90,772 mortgages for second homes were originated in 2023. Okay, cool. So 91,000, let's round up, 91,000 people went out and bought a second home in 2023. And when we're thinking about this, this could have been one of two things. This could have been a lock and key property, right? Where they're actually really using it as their second home where no one else gets to use it. Or they could be using this as a vacation rental as well, Airbnb, VRBO, HomeAway, whatever that is. It could have been either one of those. We don't know. This data does not show us if this is truly like, this is for my family, it's up in the woods, lock and key when we're not here, no one else is in it, or if this is going to be a short-term rental. But 91,000 homes, that's down 40% from 2022. So that's when we're looking at what is happening and with the interest rates and where they are, this is truly what's driving a lot of different things that is happening. And we know this, but these are two definitely interesting articles that if you're going through and you're having some conversations with some people, second mortgages being down or second homes being down in 2023 by 40%, as well as this is totally clickbait. And I think we're going to see more and more conversations around this, but just knowing that when we're talking about the markets that are having issues, it's not Colorado. So this is in 2008. This is something that as we're looking through, the southern states are having these issues, and it makes a whole lot more sense. So then we get into Housing Wire, just like we always do, and we're going through, and it says mortgage rates and the bond market have fallen a bit recently, and the spreads between the 10-year and the 30-year mortgage rates have improved over the last year's levels, right? To where they're just getting closer to each other is all that's saying. In the past 2 years, demand has always picked up whenever mortgage rates or have moved lower. And we know this, right? When money gets cheaper, this is when people start raising their hands. And this is exactly what we're seeing. Like, we don't have inventory, we have high interest rates, and that's what's slowing a lot of the demand for houses down. And so what we're doing is we're looking at some of the highest interest rates that we have seen in recent years. So when we're looking at it, it's going into purchase application data. Purchase application data was positive week to week, but still down year over year. And so here we are, here's 2024. This dotted line right here is the basement, and we're in the basement, right? Like this dotted line is as low as we probably could get. And obviously we dip a little bit lower, but if we were to look at this, here we are, May 2024, here's 2023. This is when interest rates were still pretty high. This is pretty much the start of high interest rates. This is kind of where we started seeing things get really weird in 2022. And you can see this with the purchase application data. This is your clients raising their hands saying that they're interested in purchasing a house in 2024, talking to lenders. These numbers are really, really low. They're significantly lower. But again, this is nationwide data. And so you got to be figuring this is places like the South, like Louisiana, that is really showing a lot of this as well. This doesn't necessarily reflect back over to Colorado unless you're talking about less affluent buyers, your first-time home buyers that don't have gift money attached to it and different things. Like this is where we're going to see this info. So since November 2023, when mortgage rates started to fall, we've had 12 positive prints versus 9 negative prints and 2 flat points. I feel like all this is saying is this is a week-to-week thing, which we don't really like this kind of stuff, and we don't expect this kind of stuff as living in the United States, because really what this is showing is that there is a lot of insecurities going around with our money, because one week it's really expensive, one week it's really cheap, and it just keeps fluctuating up and down and up and down. And so with this, with the interest rates doing what they're doing, we're not going to see any real movement in this number unless interest rates start and keep going lower and lower, which they have a little bit. Then we look at a weekly housing inventory, and it's going up, which is good, right? We're seeing more houses. So this last week was another year that missed his inventory growth model with higher rates. But if we're looking at this as weekly inventory change from the 3rd to the 10th, inventory rose. So we got more inventory, 559 to 568. So we're seeing more homes nationwide hit. And if we were to look at this time last year, we went from 420 to 421. Not as significant jump like we did see this year. Almost 10,000 was our difference week over week for 2024. Very, very, sad data as we're looking at this, because we are in the spring market. And when we're going through and we're looking at this different data, I think one of the big things to keep in mind is we're going to have an inventory issue. We will. From here on out, there will always be an inventory issue in the United States. And the biggest reason for that is truly because we have a new build issue where they stopped production, they slowed it down, right? Because of 2008 they got caught holding the bag. So they're not going to keep production ramping up. And right now, with the cost of money being what it is, if we were to look at application data for new builds and permits, specifically for apartments and multi-family, those numbers are down. They're down significantly. And the reason for that, again, is the cost of money. So we're not building a whole lot of inventory for housing, for cheaper housing, because it doesn't make sense. Single family houses are still going up. And with this, we will continue to see inventory issues. One, right now, because of the cost of money. The second thing that we're going to see going forward is if the interest rates go down, we're going to see more people buying, and we'll never be able to get caught up. So I think this is going to be an issue that we're going to see for many, many years, if not for forever going forward. So here it is. This is where we're looking at. Here's 2024. We're 35% more than last year, which is solid, guys. Like, this is what we want, but we really want to be up here. We want pre-2020 data, 2019 and before, because that's what we considered a healthy market, as a normal market. So pre-pandemic data, and this is what we're looking at, right? Here's 2020. Inventory went down, but this is what we knew what happened. And this was really interest rates. 2021. Interest rates, it was so cheap that we really didn't have any inventory. And again, there was inventory, it just went off the market so quick, right? And so it wasn't being able to get reflected in this data, because it was only lasting for, whether it's 5 minutes, a weekend, whatever. It did not have time for the data to be scraped out. And so they didn't actually get to see it. So we're better than where we've been in 2023 and 22, which is good, because that is very high interest rates and low inventory. And here, right, we're seeing it get a little bit higher. So we're actually seeing people put their home on the market, which is solid. And a big piece of that as well is really going to be because just fatigue. They've been waiting, right? We just looked at a headline like this where they're like, oh my God, seriously, underwater people. and they're getting tired of these headlines. And they're like, you know what, I got to move. There's no housing crash coming. There's no silver tsunami. There's no Airbnb bust. Like none of that's really happening. I can't keep holding off anymore. I got to finally sell my house. So that's good for us with the interest rates, or with interest rates being what they are, that we're actually seeing some houses come back to the market. New listing data. If we just look at this again, you can see here we are. Here's us 2024. We're in between 2022 and 2023. Obviously, we want to see this information keep going up and keep going up and keep going up. Price cuts. So price cuts are right where they need to be, right? We know that historically speaking, 1/3 of all homes in the United States go through a price cut. So right now, 2024, we're a little bit higher than 1/3, not much at all. 2023 at this time, 30%, 2022 at this time, 21%. So 33% of all homes in the United States are taking a price cut, which historically speaking, that's very normal. So this data came out on Friday of last week, and it says this. It's that time again. It's another inflation week with CPI and PPI inflation reports. Of course, some of the inflation reports have disappointed the Fed, so we will keep a close eye on what's happening. So again, it says we also have housing data, which is key to the labor market, as 5-unit permits have been in a recession for some time now. And that's what we just talked about. Multifamily, they are not building as much as they were. I know that we're looking around and we're seeing it, and it might feel like we're seeing a lot of growth, but it's not really happening. So yes, those are really being built, but even where they've gone out and built and they've bought land and they're not building and the permits aren't going through, it's because the cost of money is so high, they won't make their money back. So this is slowing down. So this is why even we will have a bigger issue on our hand here very, very soon. It'll feel good to us in as far as momentum goes, because we will have more people raise their hand when interest rates go down. I'm just saying that we're going to be in an issue where we're going to be multiple offer situations again. We're going to be $100,000 over asking. And the reason for that is there's not enough inventory out there. So when interest rates do go down, because they will go down. When interest rates do go down, we will see a flooded market of people finally going out there, and there is not enough inventory for everyone that needs a home currently, to where we will have another issue on our hands. It's just going to feel better just because we're going to be out there writing offers. But it just reminds me of 2021 when Zillow wrote an article that said like 50% of all home buyers cried at least once during the home buyer process. And I think that's kind of where we're heading back into again with what we're kind of seeing here. Here's your interest rates, right? And so we're looking from February 1, which is Tuesday. That's not Tuesday. Let's go January. So here we are. Here's your 1 year, year-to-date snapshot of interest rates. And I put jumbo for some reason. Let's go to conforming. And so we're looking at this thing, and here we are. So here's the start of the year, and we're at 6.5. Right now, we're at 6.7 and 7%. So this is where we are, but we can kind of see right here that at least conforming has gone down. And again, it's because our Fed, the Federal Reserve, they are a job loss session Fed. And so what that means is this. When they're seeing people still employed and they're still seeing people make money, in their eyes, that's not a good thing. And so when we start seeing jobs get lost and less people have money, less people have jobs, they'll start to ease the lending practices. We'll start seeing rates come down, which is super unfortunate, but that's kind of the mindset of our Fed that we have right now. It's a 1970s model, and that's kind of where they're living in. So as we're looking at this data, we won't see any significant push down until we start seeing less jobs. And keep in mind what our industry does. Our industry makes up a big sector of tax money coming through, as well as total volume of sales and employment, right? Because we are a consumer economy in the United States, right? We import most of our goods and services, except for really housing. And so when we're thinking about this, and we just saw right here, where we're seeing 5-unit apartment buildings going down, think about the jobs. Think about the jobs that are going to be impacted here. We're talking about framers. We're talking about electricians. We're talking about plumbers. We're talking about all these piece guys that are going out. They're going to be affected. So as less people are building, we're going to see less jobs coming through. I don't know how big this is going to swing, but when we start feeling this, when we actually start feeling more and more that there's less and less houses or places for people to go out and buy and rent, then we will also start seeing interest rates go down even more, because those people that are building those are actually going to be losing their jobs, which is super unfortunate, but that's going to have a direct correlation. We will start to see that. I did want to bring this to you guys. I thought this was interesting. I got this email the other day. Actually, I think it was this morning. And so what this is the percentage of local family, single family homes owned by investors. So if we were to look at this, so in the Atlanta market, 11% is owned by investors in Atlanta. Jacksonville, 13.5%, Charlotte, 11.9%, Memphis, 17. So very interesting data if you were to look at this. So 2 to 9 units. This is the demographic that makes up for it. 10 to 99, 100 to 99, 1,000 plus. Very interesting. Like, these are institutional investors owning property. And guys, just send me a text message or something. If you want me to send you this email, I'll send you this email. If you were to go down here and look, here's Colorado Springs, so 9% of the inventory. I think Denver's a little bit further down. Here's Denver, 7.54%. Most of the stuff is this 2 to 9 units. That is what they're owning. So this isn't like this could be 2 to 9 doors. It could be one building, but in all reality, it could be 9 single. I think it's all single family. Yeah, single family homes. So this is two homes to 9 homes that these guys are owning in Denver, at least. So if we're looking at this thing, I guess what I would do with it, depending on what, depending on what my strategy would be, is I would probably be looking through here: Atlanta, Jacksonville, Charlotte, Memphis, Tampa. Like, I might be looking in these areas. I did see, I think it's southern Florida right now off the Gulf, that they're actually having big price cuts right now. Like, they're like 50% almost is what their price decreases are, something ridiculous like that right now, just because they've been a very inflated economy as far as the housing goes. And so that's also going to be impacting a lot of stuff. But I would probably take this data and I'd probably just look through, and this is where a bunch of investors are going into, and just kind of maybe just taking some look and say, like, does this make sense? Like Little Rock, we just saw, like, we were to go all the way back to Second Home, just kidding, not Second Home, Southern States. And we look at this thing and we're looking at 215, 197, 212 for Little Rock. And like, if we were to go back over here and we're talking about Little Rock, 9%. I mean, that's huge. 10% is of the investor population is 2 to 9 homes. It's because the price point is where it is, right? So it's way more affordable. Yep, Lee, I'll send it to you. So that's probably one of the biggest things is, as we're going through here, there's obviously places for us to invest in. And this was just kind of an interesting little map to look at. So let's switch it over and let's talk about where we are in Arvada. Let's get Altos data as we're going into this thing. And here's Arvada ALLL2 as of today. And what's interesting, if you were to look at this report, you can see that we're going back up in price. So this just goes to show you, while the market, nationally speaking, is doing some different things to where maybe, the southern states are truly impacting us in a negative way as far as macro data. If we were looking at the micro data, and this is why this is super important, like, well, we need to know what's happening around us, because typically, and if we were to, 2008, for example, if we were looking at what was going on in Florida, what was going on in California, it starts happening on the coast and then it comes to us. Like, pretty much everything follows the coastlines and comes. And so that's why it's important to know what's happening nationally, but we also have to know our micro data when we're talking about our cities and our zip codes. And so when we're talking about Arvada, you can see that the prices are going up. And that's the median list price. The median list price of new homes also going up. Price per square foot looks like it's kind of flattening out. I know it's dropping a little bit, but let's just call it flattening out here. Average days on market dropping. Median days on market Also, well, this looks like flat. Like it looks like it did drop a little bit, but it's kind of stayed flat the last couple weeks. This is important, right? We're seeing higher prices now. We're seeing less days on market. And what's interesting is the average one tells me that we have some high priced homes, right? We have some homes that are getting overpriced, but the median homes, that's the sweet spot. So you can see that we're at 14. We were at 7 a week ago, but we went 7, 14, 3. So we're at 21, then down to 7, then to 14 days on market. So it's 3 weeks, then 1 week, then 2 weeks. Interesting data. Like as we're looking at this thing and as prices are going up and homes are coming off the market a little bit quicker again. So these are probably the conversations, right? This is the conversation that we need to be having with ourselves about pricing the home right. Yes, average days on market, 58 days. If I don't price my home right, I could expect to be on the market for 2 months. If we price the home right, we're talking about 2 weeks. And so as we're looking at this, and this is why this conversation is important. This conversation is important because of these spikes. And while we're not having any monstrous spikes happening in here, if my home's taking 2 months, right? We're talking 2 months to sell a house, and I'm able to afford here, right? Like I'm able to afford a new home at, let's say, 6.5%. And then we're talking 2 months later, and we're up here and it's 6.9, my affordability has gone down at that point. And that's why that conversation is so big, especially what's happening with our interest rates. With our interest rates fluctuating the way that they are, we need to be able to have these conversations with our buyers and sellers about average days on market, because if we are taking 2 months to sell a house, 2 months to sell a house with the interest rates doing what they're doing could price somebody out. And this is what's slowing people down. So when we're having conversations about the importance of pricing right, this is the reason. Interest rates lined up with days on market is going to be able to be your pricing index for what may or may not make sense for you. Price decreases 39%. We know 1/3 is on average. So we're a little bit higher right now. We're seeing some price increase or decreases, which is because of this 2 months on market. 2 months on market, there's some people that are getting a little bit nervous and they need to sell their home. 6% price increases. And that number's gone up a little bit, right? Like we've looked at this thing 0, it's gone up 5%. It's going up to 6% at this point. While this number doesn't truly excite me, again, this is new builds. This is, going from, stage 1 to stage 2. This is them increasing their base model X amount of dollars because they've already pre-sold enough. So this is just really new build data hitting Arvada. Relisted, discerning buyers, and we're seeing this. We are seeing more contracts fall out of contract because buyers and sellers aren't meeting eye to eye, and buyers are going through and they're saying, hey, if I'm paying 6% interest on this house, it's going to have to meet more of my needs, and they're walking away for different reasons. So that's why we're seeing 11% relisted. Inventory, that's just their inventory number. Median rent 3,200, and they're giving it a market score of 58, which is right here, which is saying today we're at a seller's market, which is better than the seller's market we were last month, but still seller's market regardless. So let's play with it. Let's see what this looks like. So if we're looking at, let's go median price at 779. So let's call 780, somewhere around there. Let's go to Arvada. All right, let's look for something around 780. And let's go for something newer. Let's not look for something that's kind of been sitting there for a while, right? I got that number right, 780. Remember, there's 820. That's not 780. Well, we might have to settle here. But guys, there's a lot of $1 million homes. It looks like, it looks like it's from 6 to $1 million. It looks like it's just jumping back and forth. Here you go. Here's 785, but this thing sat for a little bit. Let's do it a little bit different. Let's just go to 840. Let's go up. We're going to go all the way to 840. 3-bed, 3-bath. We're in Arvada, 8 triple out 5. So we're somewhere east of Indiana, and 73rd. So not bad looking home. There's really no photos, so we're not gonna be able to deep dive into that much. So 840, 8 triple L, 5 3-bedroom, 3-bath, 2,400 square foot home, and we're not on a lot, right? A pretty small house, less than a quarter of an acre. Richard's Farm, charming residential, cool, whatever. Single family, built in 2017. One person has looked at this. I'm assuming it's me. And here we are. All right, so let's play with this number. We're at 840, 20% down. Let's look at our interest rates. Let's see what they really are. Let's put in conforming loan, and it's saying, 7%. We'll probably keep it at 7%, which is, it's calling 7.1. Let's just keep it there. Guys, this is a $5,000 a month when you're putting 20% down. So if you're putting $168,000 down at a 7.1% interest rate, you're paying $5,200 a month. So if we were to look at that, I'm sure we could do this math a little bit easier, but we'll get exact on it. Let's go 5,278 times 12. That's $63,000 a year, $63,336. Most of that going to interest. I know this is principal and interest, but most of it's not going to principal. It's going to the interest on that property. So we're talking about property taxes, homeowners association, insurance, and then we're talking about your principal for $63,000. And when we know that most people making $100,000 in the United States right now are living paycheck to paycheck, and that's north of 60% of your paycheck is going towards this house at close to our average price point. I know we went up a little bit. That's what our people are seeing right now. And that's why we're seeing some things slow down. But again, that's why we have to keep our finger on the pulse of the market with interest rates. And again, with new builds and everything else that are happening. But let's play with it. And let's just say that it's going to be a first-time home buyer. Let's go FHA. FHA right now is 6.7. Let's call it 6.8. So if we go 6.8, and we're going to change this, let's call it 6%. I think that's a fair number. So they're putting $50,000 down. And look what this did to our monthly payment. It took our monthly payment from 52 to 63. And so we went from a $63,000 yearly spend to a $76,440 yearly spend. So that's 76% of $100,000 income that is going to just housing. That's not your internet. That's not your electricity. That's not your water. That's not your 7 subscriptions to your streaming services from Hulu to whatever else you're watching, right? That's $76,000 just for your housing at an $840,000 home, when we just saw that our median price in Arvada right now is $780. So I know that we're $60,000 over that, but I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's not hugely over. This is the psychology of our buyers right now. They're looking at these monthly payments. And again, we will start seeing these interest rates go down as things are starting to happen with jobs, and as well as the election cycle, right? Like, well, I don't want you guys paying attention to what's happening in the elections because it's about to get dark, I'm sure, right? Like we will start to see that happening. That is going to have a bigger impact on what's happening with our interest rates. Like it will. It absolutely has to. So again, clickbait as we're looking at this thing. If you guys start hearing anything around here, because I think that you will, about underwater homes, it went from 1 in 38 homes to 1 in 37. Homes are underwater, which means 25% or more. And that really only matters if you go to sell or if you lose your job. Like that's the only thing, because then you're having to bring money out of pocket to pay the bank back. And again, like these people are truly people that bought in the height of 2021. Like this is not your normal people that are experiencing this. Second home bought last year, right, down 40% versus 2022. I think there's also very interesting data, and you can see that this is truly driven by the interest rates. People did slow down in 2022. Interest rates were still pretty high, at least towards the end of the year. And so where they've kind of leveled off at, you can see a lot of people have slowed down buying houses, and it probably also touches a little bit of the inventory as well. Like there's not a whole lot of inventory out there. And then we're looking at this thing, right? And the headline reads, "Our mortgage rate's about to fall." And we're the only numbers that are truly going to impact this at this point are jobs data, because cost of goods and services are still up there. Americans are still buying products, even though we don't need them. That's why we have the highest credit card debt that we've had as a country ever. And the only thing that is going to drop these rates is if people start losing jobs, because at that point, there's a belief that if people don't have a job, they're not going to spend money. I think the credit card situation kind of disproves that a little bit. And that's the only way we're going to see rates go down. Interest rates, conventional rates are going down. FHA is kind of hovering a little bit where it is. So this is good news. And as long as nothing weird happens, we could continue to see this go down and down and down. So let's just make sure that we're having conversations with our buyers and our sellers and let them know kind of what we're seeing on the map and seeing what their long-term and short-term real estate goals are. Again, send me a text, Lee. I got you guys. If you want this email, I'll kick it over to you. Like I said, just kind of interesting data to look at. And if we're just looking at our data, we're right in line with kind of what is happening, at least as well as price decreases go. And we're in the spring market time. And so while national data is important to know, micro data is more important to know. And we need to be going out and having more conversations, because we live in a different market than most people do. We have a higher price point. We have more affluent buyers in Colorado than most other states do. And so as we're going through, having the conversations, seeing what makes sense. Is there an interest rate, or is there a particular house or a neighborhood that is going to draw them to want to buy and or to sell? And just making sure that we're taking massive mind share.